Hi, my name is Nicole Bellata, and today I will be talking to you about the culture of Hawaii. I chose to research Hawaii because it has so many different cultures, races, and ethnicities mixed into it. Our text refers to Hawaii as the mixed plate, and I found this to be very true in my research. In this mixed plate, everyone celebrates being different and embraces each other's unique cultural aspects. When I first started to research Hawaii's culture, I thought it would be difficult for all these cultures to be represented in one, but the more research I did, I found that each culture was able to keep its traditions and values alive in the vast diversity. Rather than each culture assimilating it, which is what we typically see in our culture, Hawaiians share the love of each distinct culture. While there are many different cultures, Hawaiians have formed their own values to bond them together. Their core value is family, or as they call it, ohana. Ohana is not limited to just the immediate family like we often see here. The ancestors are considered to still be part of a family and they're honored. Their ancestors' memory and possessions are kept very sacred on their island. Chinese immigrants have had a great influence on funerals in Hawaii. Chinese rituals greatly stress the importance of family during the grieving process, and children are expected to participate fully in funerals and other traditions during this process. In the funerals that many of us are used to, we will put flowers on top of a casket to respect our loved ones and to offer our respects. And the Chinese funerals in Hawaii has a similar offering process, but theirs are different because they use paper mache or other paper offerings. And the priest will also read off specific instructions of how to take care of them in heaven. I found this to be very interesting because while our culture does not give instructions per se, we do think of ways to honor our loved ones who have passed away. When my grandfather passed away, the priest was telling us not to let his memory fade away. And I understand this isn't the same as instructions, as to say, as our text refers to, if you're shopping, don't spend all of their money. But we still do things that he liked to do when we visit his burial site. And I think the parallels between the two cultures represent that honoring the dead is almost a cultural universal, not something specific to just one culture. Although that's different in Hawaiian culture than maybe it is here, we still find ways to honor them and to keep their memory alive. Another way that Hawaiian culture has been able to accommodate for the many different cultures is by using something called a pidgin. A pidgin is a common language that locals use to communicate with each other, no matter what culture they are originally from. Our text tells us a story about how a Filipino man was passing away and a Caucasian nurse was able to comfort him by using this pidgin during the end of his life. The nurse was able to tell the man that his spirit was strong even though he was passing away from a disease. The idea of a local language is something so unique to Hawaiians' culture because in other cultures, if you don't speak the immediate language of the land, you will need a translator to communicate or have to learn the language in some other way yourself. On a land with abundant cultures, they have found a way to create new cultural norms while staying true to the many cultures of origin. In our mainstream culture, we will often have a gathering after a funeral where everyone can come together, eat food, and celebrate the memory of the person that we have buried that day. In Hawaiian culture, they have a similar tradition. After the rituals have been performed, no matter what the ritual was, depending on which religion the person who has passed was from, the mourners will cook food and come together as family and friends. However, I think Hawaiians are more particular about this ritual than we are in this culture. Hawaiians will have facilities with kitchens and other equipment to make sure that everyone can gather together. For example, they'll have their gathering in somewhere with a very large dining room and a very large kitchen to accommodate the number of guests and mourners that they will have that day. I think often in our culture, it's held at a house or wherever the funeral was performed. There's a space for all of us to go, but not every funeral has a process. I think some of us can just go home, or it's immediate family that will gather. It really depends on our culture. A way that Hawaiian culture is different from our own is the attire that's worn to the funeral. Here we're expected to wear all black to show that we are in mourning, like something that I'm wearing right now may not even be appropriate for a funeral because it has some red on it, although it is mostly black. Hawaiians honor their dead by wearing colorful attire and leis to the ceremony. When someone passes, an announcement will say, "Aloha attire is being requested." I think we often associate leis as simply being a necklace made of flowers. We see it a lot in movies as something that visitors are handed when they get off the plane, or they're worn for costume parties a lot of the time. But actually, leis are worn for different events, and for events such as funerals, there is a lei called a hala lei that is worn to symbolize dying. So a lot of thought goes into what leis they wear, while I think most of us will just go pick out a black dress or a black dress shirt to show that we're in mourning rather than signify dying. As I mentioned during this presentation, Hawaiian culture is extremely diverse. And when someone passes away, it may be difficult to determine what ethnic background or religion that they come from. And I was thinking of that while I was researching this Hawaiian culture, of how they can actually tell which ritual they need to perform or what religion this person was from. But to accommodate for this, there is a central altar in the middle of the building that will signify what religion this person who has passed away practiced when they were alive. This would be symbolized by different symbols or pictures, and it's made in a rotating form so that you can see it from all angles, and it can be changed out for different people that pass away. Whereas here we would, if someone was Catholic, we would go to a Catholic church, or if they were Jewish, we would be in a temple. They just have this way of having a central altar and a more of a universal space to determine what religion this person came from. Among these religions could be Christianity, Buddhism, and Taoism, and many others in the Hawaiian culture. As I was doing this research, I quickly learned that Hawaiians seem to value the presence of family and friends more than I have seen in my own experience. I think that with my experiences of death, I've seen only family members and close friends come to funerals, and it's almost considered disrespectful here to attend a funeral where you did not personally know the deceased. I think that Hawaiians are bonded closer than we are here, and if someone passes away, you attend their funeral to show support regardless of what your religious preferences are. I remember in high school when a classmate passed away, many people did not attend her funeral because she was having a Catholic ceremony, and those students who were not Catholic were not comfortable attending because they did not know any of the rituals practiced in Catholicism. I think it would greatly benefit our culture to move towards the idea of a local identity like they do in Hawaii. They have a basic funeral practice that are similar to ours, but they have different rituals within that practice depending on what the deceased person had practiced during their lifetime. Also, since children are required to take part in funeral services, we can almost conclude that they have a greater understanding of death than many of children in this culture do. I would be very interested to see how many children in Hawaiian culture respond to death differently than children in our mainstream culture. I would think that they would experience a similar grieving process. As we have learned, the grieving process can be universal, especially when it comes to children and their age group and things, but I think they would have a greater appreciation of the ceremony for honoring someone who has passed than our children here. I know when I was younger, it was kind of about getting dressed up and seeing relatives, and I didn't really understand what was going on in a funeral. But with that being said, I greatly enjoyed learning about the culture of Hawaii and being able to see how different they are, but also how similar parts of their traditions can be to our mainstream culture. After my research, I have learned that their core value of love and appreciation for people on their land is something that our culture could benefit from. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you enjoyed learning about Hawaii as much as I did.